الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تبع هداهم أما بعد. It's your brother Muhammad Al-Andalusi here. First of all, I would like to, come here to Australia with a specific goal of mine and a specific mission, which is to show brothers and hopefully sisters as well the power of Allah Azza wa Jal through my story in a way that shows that if the person truly wants to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal and learn the Arabic language, with how the actual goal and accomplishing this goal and how big it can look, learning a language. And I saw these from some of the questions of some brothers when they ask. Yesterday was a brother, he asked a question starting with a limiting belief already. He said, a lot of us cannot master the Arabic language, so what can we? You already lost already, akhi. Why would you start a question in a negative way? If you don't know something, you have never learned the Arabic language and whatnot, what is making you think that you cannot master the language? When most of the scholars that are known for their impressive works towards the Arabic language, most of them are foreigners, i.e. not Arabs. Whether we start with Sibawayh or Ibn Faris or Ibn Sida, Zamakhshari. And if we even go into other fields, Mustalah al-Hadith and Bukhari, Muslim, the rest of the reporters and narrators and collectors of a hadith. And so my intention is to break through those limiting beliefs that learning the Arabic language is difficult. And this is why I started by saying this to you guys, because I am sitting here, and to be honest with you, it's the first tour I'm doing, the first quote-unquote da'wah tour. First time, being invited to a masjid, and most of the times I just interact with brothers like, just students of knowledge, this, that. And so being pushed in front of a crowd, in front of a mic, with the pressure of remind the people about the Arabic language. It's like, oh, subhanAllah, wow. Now is another setup. It's not the typical just benefiting with your students, doing mudarasa, reminding one another and learning. And so all of this to say that, I don't want you guys to look at me as like, they have been calling me Sheikh here in Australia. Well, subhanAllah, I'm still young, akhi. I only have one white hair in my beard. Now, ولست بشيخ وإنما الشيخ من يدب دبيبا, as the saying says. The sheikh is not anybody but the one that walks limping. And fair enough, these days I'm walking limping because a few days ago we were playing basketball and my mind was in a elite level, because when I was actually 17 I used to play basketball. And my mind was still there in that elite level, but my body, subhanAllah, after all these years focusing on talab al-ilm, seeking knowledge and business, responsibilities, having children, getting married, my body just didn't follow with the elite mentality. So alhamdulillah, al-ikhwa, I will try my best to remind you guys about the importance of the Arabic language. And hopefully we'll go over a few aqwal, a few sayings of the first few generations, and through it we can see how they used to look at the Arabic language. Because the reality is that nowadays most Muslims and most students of knowledge and whatnot, they look at the Arabic language as something that's secondary, something that's like an additional thing to have, especially in the Western world, having the actual quote-unquote luck, the luck given by Allah Azza wa Jal In the masajid, I hear there's duros, there's a bunch of lessons by students of knowledge who actually left Australia and came back and are teaching, which is such a blessing. But with this globalization and this access to so much information, not knowledge, information. And this is the difference. What's the difference between information and knowledge? Information is you go over a book, you attend a lesson, you start hearing information. When I do salah, putting my hands here, according to Imam Shafi'i is this. Tamam. When I heard a hadith of Fulan saying that this is not permissible. Tamam. You grab an information here and there, and you feel, if Allah Azza wa Jal don't bless you with the trait of having self-awareness, you start feeling like you have knowledge. But it's not knowledge, it's information. What knowledge is having the foundations that allows you to, every time you learn a new piece of information, you connect it straight away to those foundations that you have learned. Like, for example, you learn, the rule in Usul al-Fiqh that whatever is necessary to do an obligation, then that same thing becomes an obligation. You learn a rule. Now you come across many different situations in life and this and that. You heard a hadith and so on. And based on this rule, you are able to then connect it to this foundation and know the answer to a question, the answer to a mas'ala, a matter, whatever it might be, based on those foundations that you have built. And that's the difference in between information and knowledge. Information is just, imagine it and visualize it as dots that are scattered. I know this and I know that and I know this and I know this and I know this. Knowledge is when you are able to connect all of these dots with each other. And every new information, every new piece of information only makes those already existing dots in your mind even more solid and rasikh in your mind. That's the difference. Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he described knowledge as قال الله وقال الرسول وقال الصحابة. That's what knowledge is. Allah said, the Prophet ﷺ said, and the companions of the Prophet ﷺ said. Their sayings, starting with the Qur'an, is what we as Muslims consider as knowledge. So the more you know of it, the more knowledge you have. And this is the knowledge that Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Qur'an, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. That Allah will elevate and raise the ranks of those who acquire this knowledge. And so once the person knows this and the Muslim knows this and reads the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, where he says, طَلَبُ الْعِلْمِ فَرِيضَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ, that seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim, whether he's a man or a woman. Once you know that, you make your life about that. There's no such thing as, no, oh no, he's just an imam, he's a sheikh, he's the one that learns. Now, all Muslims, we need a certain threshold of knowledge. All Muslims, we need to get to a point where it's like, this is the bare minimum. Right now, if you want to continue learning, la bas. That's fine. And it's great for you, and it's the best thing you can do after your obligations. As the scholars describe knowledge. After your salawat and so on, that's the best thing you can be doing. And so each Muslim should have a particular aim, a particular objective, a particular threshold of where he needs to get to. Amongst the most important things for a Muslim to have present in their life, and I would say as a life foundation and rule to live upon, is knowing that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Allah Azza wa Jal and people in the history of Islam have already, tested and being put through the test, which then allowed us to know what is the correct thing to do and the incorrect thing to do. What I mean by this is that Allah Azza wa Jal, He says in the Qur'an, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. That those who first decided to go with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and those who made the hijrah to Medina from Mecca, and those who were already in Medina that accepted and received the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and accepted Islam, and those who followed from the next generations, those Allah Azza wa Jal was pleased with them, and they were pleased with what Allah Azza wa Jal decreed for them in their life. So once the Muslim knows this, why would I try to design my life to be any different than those who already have been accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal in how they performed and lived and behaved and dressed and spoke and in their life? If I know that this is the people that Allah Azza wa Jal said, فَإِنْ آمَنُوا بِمِثْلِ مَا آمَنْتُمْ بِهِ فَقَدْ اهْتَدَوْا, that if they believe, i.e., oh Muhammad, if the people that come after, generations to come after, and they believe in the same thing that you believed, then indeed they have and going to be guided, i.e., they are going to know what to do in their life. And obviously believing, the amal, the action needs to follow. You don't just believe something or say something and don't do it. You don't just believe something or say something and don't do it. That's why Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Qur'an, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لِمَا تَقُولُونَ مَا لَا تَفْعَلُونَ. O you who have believed, why do you say what you don't do? So Allah Azza wa Jal has told us and showed us in the Qur'an, in this ayah, that the Muslim should be about it. You should talk the talk, walk the walk. Pretty much in simple terms. And I would take this as a side note, but it's coming to my mind, which is from the beauty of the Arabic language, is that there's a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is teaching one of the Sahaba how to make tayammum. So he says, إِنَّمَا كَانَ يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ هَكَذَا. And then he showed him how to do tayammum. إِنَّمَا كَانَ يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ. Most of us, we know قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ means to say. قُلْ هُوَ رَبٌّ. قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ. قُلْ, most, and the default meaning is to say. However, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ showed here in this hadith, إِنَّمَا كَانَ يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَقُولَ بِيَدَيْكَ. It was enough for you to say with your hands this. So we can see that the qawl goes with the fi'l, goes with the action. So why would the Prophet ﷺ otherwise use qawl instead of إِنَّمَا كَانَ يَكْفِيكَ أَن تَفْعَلْ كَذَا? It was enough for you to do such. And this is why when you learn the Arabic language, you read the Qur'an with way more depth. If Allah says in the Qur'an, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ. Say, oh you who have disbelieved, I don't worship the same thing you worship. Allah is not telling you only to say it, but he's saying to do what you say. So al-qawl in the Arabic language, depending on the context, can mean as well to do the thing. And this is just one of the thousands of examples we can take to show that when you read the Qur'an with knowledge of the Arabic language, you read it in a whole different way. Going back to the topic of the Sahaba and knowing that the first generations were the best of people, as the Prophet Muhammad said, خير الناس قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم, that the best of people are my generation, i.e. the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet. Then those who followed, i.e. the next 100 years, as some of the explanators, is that an English word? Oh, I might translate it from Spanish. How do you say يعني مفسرو الحديث? Translators? Not translators. Commentators now. So some commentators of hadith, they say that those who followed mean the next 100 years. ثم الذين يلونهم, the Prophet ﷺ said it again, then the next 100 years. So the first generations, i.e. the Sahaba, the Tabi'un, and Atba' at-Tabi'in. Once we know this, and once we know that these are the best of people, it don't matter if we're in 2025 or 2067, they will still be the best people. And you as a Muslim should always go back to those people if you want to achieve the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, because Allah Azza wa Jal said already that He is happy with them. So that's a life foundation and rule to have, right? Which is to know that I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Allah Azza wa Jal said already that He is happy with a certain type of people, so I'm just going to try and be like that, like those people, which are the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim. Now the Sahaba, and I'm going to start with this generation, they used to look, and as I said in the beginning, what I want to get is show you guys, bi'ithnillah, how these first three generations and those who followed their steps, they looked at the Arabic language. Not as we see it nowadays, where it's like, oh yeah, this person has studied, he knows this and that, he attended some durus. Okay, خير إن شاء الله. طيب كيف حالك يا أخي؟ سمعت أنك طلبت العلم. Oh no, sorry, I only speak Arabic. كيف يا أخي? How did you learn then? Who did you take from? No, I just went through some books, and I know some people like this in Spain. They don't speak Spanish. I mean, they don't speak Arabic. They give in da'wah. That's it. That's the whole life. And so we want to see how these generations, they looked at the Arabic language. Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, I want to show you how, and hopefully all of us know a little bit of the personality of Umar ibn al-Khattab and how ghayur he was for the religion of Islam. How he didn't care about what you think. I'm submitted to Allah Azza wa Jal. I don't fear no one. And so he said, لا تعلموا لغة العاجم. لغة الأعاجم. Don't learn the language of the foreigners. He's talking to the Arabs now. He's talking to the Muslims of his time. Don't learn the language of the أعاجم. فإن الرجل إذا تعلمها خب. Because the man, if he learns these languages, khab, he becomes corrupted. Now here, let's have a little pause about, not those type of pauses, tierno, because we're going to come to this topic right now. And hopefully, I don't know if you guys in Australia are about, if you guys have this type of fawahish, this type of corruptions. But the corruption that that Umar ibn Khattab means here, that come through language. Through language, I speak 5 languages fluently. English was being one of them. 10 years ago, I couldn't speak to you guys like this. which again shows as a side note that you can learn languages, and that we are human beings and we have this skill already, or this ability to learn a language. So that goes to what we were saying in the beginning, that it's possible for you to learn the Arabic language without a doubt. And so as a polyglot, as they call it, somebody who speaks fluently 5 different languages, I can tell you that I am a different person in all of these languages. And I was telling the brothers just a couple of days ago, I was saying, when I speak English, I generally feel I don't have no akhlaq. Whether it's because I learn it in the streets, whether it's because for whatever I learn it from, I just feel like I lose all my hate of an aura of talib ilm. I become all ghetto, this and that. Start speaking it's just different. To say that when you speak a language, you learn a language, there is a certain behavior that goes with it. There's a certain type of akhlaq that go with it. So when Umar ibn Khattab says that man ta'allamaha khab, the man that learns other than the Arabic language becomes corrupted, that's the things that he means. And these obviously comes from when they started seeing that the Muslims started to get mixed up with other languages, other people that are not Arab. There is a culture that comes with it. And you can see it in if you travel a little bit, you will see it. Most of the countries that speak the Arabic language, yes, everybody has their own little things, but the countries that have the Arabic language as a default, they tend to be more inclined towards the adat and the habits of Al-Islam. Because the Arabic language is the liturgical language of Al-Islam. The liturgical language of Al-Islam, meaning the language that you access the books and the sources of Al-Islam. So this is Umar ibn al-Khattab. And later on in this maqola, this hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab, he says, وَخْشَوْشِنُوا وَحْلَوْلِقُوا وَتَمَاعَدُوا فَإِنَّكُمْ مَعْدِيُّونَ. He says, وَخْشَوْشِنُوا, roughen up. Be rough. Don't try and learn all these language of the Ajim because you think like now the Greeks, the philosophers, they speak in a different way and these and خشوشنوا. And he says at the end, فَإِنَّكُمْ مَعْدِيُّونَ, from Ma'd, you are Arab. And so it shows you that Umar, he had a ghira for the language and a ghira for his people. He says, فَإِنَّكُمْ مَعْدِيُّونَ. But here I want to emphasize on, and Al-Imam Al-Tha'alibi has a very beautiful quote about this particular topic, which is the topic of, okay, but Umar ibn al-Khattab, he's in Quraysh, he's Arabi, so he's talking to his people. So Al-Imam Al-Tha'alibi, in the beginning of his book, Fiqh al-Lugha wa Sirr al-Arabiyya, the fiqh, understanding the jurisprudence, I think they translate in English, the understanding of lugha, of language, and the secret of al-Arabiyya and the secret of Arabic. He says that man ahabba Allah ahabba Rasulahu Muhammad Al-Mustafa, that whoever loves Allah Azza wa Jal loves his prophet. Naam. And whoever loves his prophet loves the Arab, because that's where he comes from. And if you love the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are going to love everything about him. The way he, the way he behaves, the way he dresses, the way he does on Mondays, on Tuesdays, on Wednesdays, how he sleep, on what side, how he treats certain people. And from amongst those things, and the most prominent things actually, is his language. Haven't you seen, you go back home, my father's from Senegal. I go back home, and you see these Senegalese kids wearing fitted caps and trying to be like Americans. Yeah, you know, they don't speak English. They have the accent before the language. Why? Because they watch these video clips, these music clips, these, that, and they get corrupted. So now they want to look like these people they see. So they start dressing away, they start speaking away, they start trying to add certain words in their language. And so from the most natural thing to do is that if you love someone, if you want to be like someone, you go ahead and speak like him. So the Arabic language, this is why Imam Al-Tha'alibi, he says in the beginning of his book, that whoever loves the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he learns, and he uses this expression in Arabic, صرف همته إليها, يعني he completely directs his attention to the Arabic language, and وثابر عليها, and he continuously tries to put effort towards it and continuously tries to learn it. It's not like now I learned. Yesterday a brother, he asked in the masjid, I don't even know where we are at this point. I was going to say Amsa Masjid. A brother, he said, you know, not all of us can master the Arabic language, so what is like the bare minimum? But the thing is, like, the Arabic language shouldn't be looked like that. Just like the Qur'an shouldn't be looked like that. As we said in the beginning, you are meant to be seeking knowledge. That's part of you as a Muslim. So you will always have to be connected to knowledge. It's not I go to Jamiat, you know, whatever, Medina University, Al-Azhar University, I go to Mauritania in the desert, I go Yemen, whatever it might be. I come back, khalas, I did my bare minimum, I stop now. Even if you're a tajir, you are a businessman, you are a pilot, you are a nurse, you are a doctor, you are 50 years old, 60, 70 years old, 15 years old, it doesn't matter. You always need to be putting effort towards becoming more knowledgeable as a Muslim. And so that's why Imam Al-Tha'alibi here, he says, وَثَابَرَ عَلَيْهَا, i.e. he continuously puts effort in learning the Arabic language. Something even more clear than this is that Imam Al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he said, وعلى كل مسلم أن يتعلم من لسان العرب ما بلغ جهده. And wallahi, when you read it in Arabic, it just hits different. ما بلغ جهده. It's an expression I wouldn't even think of saying it like that if it wasn't how the first generations of Muslims used the Arabic language in such an eloquent way. ما بلغ جهده, meaning whatever. He says in the beginning of the quote, and upon every Muslim to learn from this language of the Arab, whatever his efforts can reach. In the most close way translated in English, whatever his efforts can reach to, there's no such thing as like what's the bare minimum. Is a language you need to always be learning, because the most you learn, the more you know about the Arabic language, the more basira, the more clear, in-depth understanding you are going to have of the nusus, of the actual text, being the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And going back to how the first generations, they used to treat the Arabic language and how harsh they used to be about it and how strict they used to be about it and how connected they used to be about it. The generations we are trying to resemble is a qawl by Imam Malik, where he says, or Imam Malik, where he says, لا أوتي برجل يفسر كتاب الله غير عالم بلغات العرب إلا جعلته نكالا. That there is no man that I see or that is brought to me and he explains and interprets the book of Allah Azza wa Jal without knowing about the Arabic language, except that I will harshly punish him. There's no man that is brought to me or that I come across that interprets the book of Allah without knowing the Arabic language, except that I will harshly punish him. except that I would put hands on him, basically. Anybody come around talking about the Qur'an, explaining, no, this don't mean this, you don't even know Arabic, ya akhi. The early generations would have put hands on you. Be quiet, know your place. And this shows the power and rank that those generations used to give to the Arabic language. He's putting the Qur'an and the Arabic language in the same sentence, in the same analogy. Likewise, from the great Mufassirun, Mujahid, from the Tafsir Mujahid, he says, لا يحل لرجل يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر أن يتكلم في كتاب الله أن يتكلم في كتاب الله بغير, or I can't remember how this quote finishes actually. But basically he says, لا يحل لرجل يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر. It's not permissible for a man who believes in Allah Azza wa Jalla in the last day to speak about the book of Allah, except that he knows the Arabic language. They're giving me signs, guys, that we have to go. We have a plane to catch tonight. So I will try and summarize in a minute. The point is that the early generations, those that we are trying to resemble to, the Muslims who have followed the steps of those who Allah Azza wa Jal have said that He is pleased with them. They are the ones that have already agreed with what they have done and what they have believed in and how they live their life. Just do as they do. All of these generations, they used to look at the Arabic language as it being a tool and the key to access the sources, the Qur'an and the Sunnah. So when the Muslim understands this, and the intelligent Muslim and intelligent believer understands this, he doesn't take the Arabic language as a secondary thing, as something that is fine to have. This is the worst state you can be at, which is like, yeah, I mean, I don't know Arabic, but I don't necessarily want to. I just want to memorize Qur'an, to be honest. I don't want to know Arabic. It's like, you got priorities messed up. You got to start with Arabic language so you can understand the Qur'an. That's the whole point of the Qur'an. It's supposed to heal you. You're supposed to understand it. You're supposed to ponder on it. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Don't they ponder and reflect on the Qur'an, its meanings? Or do they have or is it that they have locks on their hearts? I.e., nothing can go in it. Because the Qur'an is supposed to go to your heart. But by reciting it with no sense of understanding, it doesn't fulfill that. So they used to look at the Arabic language as the tool and the thing that will allow you to achieve that, which is the whole goal, to live a life, as it was reported by the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that he was a walking Qur'an. In order for you to achieve that, you need to understand it. And the way how you can understand it, and the way how you can extract this benefit and this hidden gems of the Qur'an, is the more you learn about the Arabic language. So I hope that this is enough of a reminder for myself and a reminder for my beloved brothers of Melbourne. We are about to leave Melbourne. I'm leaving with a heavy heart. It was a very nice meeting. All the brothers, seeing the communities here. You guys have something beautiful going on in these communities. So I hope that you guys, after this lesson, start asking around who you can learn Arabic language from. And I'm pretty sure they have, duros going on here. It's quite an active masjid, mashallah. And if not, you guys can check with the brothers at Arabic Revival 360. Their mission is actually to have courses of the Arabic language in every corner of Melbourne. And it's always good to attend like the traditional way of sitting at the feet of the sheikh and at the feet of the instructor and learning from his adab and his akhlaq and his mannerisms and going through that hardship. Naam, that's the best way. So I hope that if we don't meet again in this dunya, we meet again in al-akhirah, and you guys ask about me, if you guys make it before me. Say, what was that dude that came once in a masjid was talking about the Arabic language? Ya Allah Azza wa Jal, ma bi hadha rajul. And you guys can bring me into Jannah, inshallah, if Allah qaddar that we don't make it. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us Jannat al-Firdaus. فإنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.